Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we have another shop talk video. Today's topic is going to be overfilling your gas tank because the pump shuts off and clicks and you just say, oh, let me round it up, and why that's not good for your vehicle. Now before we go ahead and begin, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below. Definitely smash that like button because it helps the channel out. With that said, let's go ahead and get started on today's topic. Let's say you're at a gas station and your car needs a half a tank of gas. You pay at the pump, you put the pump in there, you lock it, it's filling up, and you get about $40 worth of gas in there. Let's say it's $42.95 to be exact. And the pump shuts off. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, let me just get 5 cents more worth of gas because I want to make it an even 43. Because I know a lot of people think like this and they want to do this. They want to round it up to the next dollar. Well, the thing is, when you're doing that and you're trying to round that up thinking you're getting more for your money at the pump, you're actually hurting your vehicle and your emission system. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, before I got into this field and I expanded my knowledge, I would do that sometimes where I would, go to the gas station, say $40 on pump one. My car would only take about $37 and I'm over there trying to squeeze the extra $3 in there. And I'll be honest with you, I've done it. I'm sure many people have done it, but it's not the correct thing to do. It does damage your vehicle. So let's say in that scenario, your pump stops. The correct way to do it is once that pump stops, as long as you know that the car got filled up, you take off the pump and that's it. Once it clicks, let it be. Don't try to top it off all the way. There's even warnings by your gas tank and on the gas pumps typically that say do not top off. And that's what that's referring to. So one click, remove it, cap it, you're good to go. You're not hurting your vehicle. Now for those of us that it clicks and we just say, oh, let's round it up, just keep going a little more. What you're actually doing is you're hurting your vehicle's emission system and you're possibly causing damage. And what typically will happen is your gas tank is designed to have a certain amount of air gap in there, and there's a bunch of valves and items on there that'll measure this and keep you from leaking gas out in case of a rollover. There's a lot of systems. Your gas tank isn't just a tank that holds liquid. There's a bunch of safety features built into it. So let's say your pump clicked and you keep going, you're trying to fill it up. So what you're doing is you're going well past the air gap that you're supposed to have in there, and you're filling up your tank all the way full. Let's say you got it all the way to the point where the filler neck is, where you insert your nozzle. Now what happens is you have an emission system, and what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to draw a vacuum and pressurize your gas tank. And there's a lot of solenoids on there. There's a purge solenoid, which is commonly connected to the engine, that allows the fumes and the vapor stored in the charcoal canister to be burned at a later time. There's also a fresh air vent valve that you typically have on there that'll introduce fresh air into the system. So what you're doing is when you're topping off your gas tank all the way to the top, is you're getting raw fuel into your canister. Therefore it's damaging your charcoal canister, and those things are very expensive. They typically go for a couple $100 depending on your vehicle. So once you introduce gas into your charcoal canister, you pretty much damaged it. What liquid gas will do in there is it'll basically cause the charcoal to absorb, it'll cause it to disperse, and it can go throughout the system. Normally the charcoal canister is packed very tight. And what it's supposed to do is, like any desiccant, it's supposed to, suck in moisture and vapors and stuff like that. And when you're putting liquid gas through it, it just, wreaks havoc on it and everything gets torn apart. And when that happens, it's really extreme because the whole emission system can get clogged up, because if that charcoal starts floating by absorbing liquid gas, it starts coming apart. It goes through your system and through your lines. It can make its way up to that purge valve at the engine and even possibly inside your engine. So it can damage quite a bit. Now, when you do this, the more common thing that I see is the purge valves going bad. They'll suck raw gas through them and that'll cause the valve to go bad. It'll cause it not to seal correctly. Aside from you getting, let's say, a higher idle because your car is introduced to a form of gas that it's unmetered and the vehicle doesn't know it's present there, what will happen is the liquid gas will get on your valve. It'll cause a little flapper to cause it to not seal correctly, or it could get into the electronics and short it out and cause that purge valve to go bad. It's a very common thing. If you're a mechanic and you've been through this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's say you topped it off and the charcoal got wet it made it all up throughout the system. Your purge valve is bad and it sucks some into the motor. So what do? Well, in that scenario, you got to replace everything, and it's not cheap. I get a few customers every year that this happens to, where they overfill and they keep topping off and eventually causes an issue. Now, the example that I'm giving you is the most extreme one, where the charcoal comes out of the canister and gets throughout everything. Only some systems will do that, not all, but when the charcoal is packed tight and you get liquid in there, it'll help disperse it, therefore your canister is not going to work the way it should anymore. Again, canisters are made to absorb vapors. The whole point of the system is to absorb extra vapors, store them, and then burn them when you're cruising down the highway, at 70 miles an hour, for example. So that's what you're mainly hurting. Now, there's also a anti-roll valve in there inside your gas tank, and what it does is, in case you flip your car over, it stops the gas from flowing out of your tank, getting all over, creating a fire. I find that can get damaged quite often as well. And you just got to be careful. You can wreak a lot of damage, and if that valve goes bad, you're replacing a gas tank typically. So it's not a cheap fix. Nothing that we're talking about here today is going to be a cheap fix if you do this. Now, a lot of people might say, Mike, my car constantly clicks as soon as you lock it. It could be on an empty tank and it constantly clicks and shuts off the pump. Well, that's easy because someone has damaged that vehicle prior to you owning it, or possibly you've done it throughout the years if you are accustomed to topping it off. Because the way that pump is designed is that when it feels an increased amount of pressure and air coming back to it, it's designed to shut off automatically. So if your car is constantly needing to be held to fill up the tank, then you already have a damaged system, and you may probably want to look into it. Now, a lot of things that happen when you have a faulty system from doing this is, you may notice you go to the pump, you fill up your car, you top it off too much, and you go to start your car and your car just cranks. It doesn't start. You just cranks, and eventually it catches. That's because what happens is, when you damage your purge solenoid or your purge valve, depending on what you want to call it, what you're doing is all those vapors that are in the tank are traveling through the system uncontrolled, not restricted. They're going to your intake manifold, where it's commonly introduced from the purge valve, and they're basically just inducing the vapor in there, and it's going to cause the engine to stumble and not want to start because it's not expecting that to be there. So you may find your car has a long crank if you have this issue. And nothing good comes from it. So what I always want to urge and tell people out there is that if your system is not broken and it's working correctly and you're filling up your car, once it clicks off, just stop, put the pump back, call it a day. Don't try to maximize it and get it up to the nearest round dollar, because at the end of the day, to round up your dollar is going to wind up costing you a few $100s. Like I mentioned, nothing in emission systems are cheap. They can get pretty pricey, and it's sometimes difficult to diagnose depending on what the issue is. So, it's going to wind up costing quite a bit. So with that said, guys, don't top off your gas tanks. Once it stops and it clicks off, put the pump away and just drive on, and your car will thank you and your wallet will thank you. So with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment, like, and subscribe, because it definitely helps the channel grow. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.